Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode, action-packed episode, I'd say, of writing Visual Studio extensions with Matt. That's me. And there's something. What is that sound? I can hear myself. Okay, something is odd. Anyway, let's move on. Today is the second time in a row that we are so lucky to have with us the excellent producer, Mr. John Galloway. Hello, John.
Hello. Let me see. I need to add myself. Whoop! There I am. Hey! Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you too, sir. And happy Friday to everyone out there watching. I think I should start clearing something up because, I was on the Twitters just a few minutes ago. And, I was tweeting out that we were doing this episode today and inviting people to join. And then the Visual Studio account also tweeted about this episode, but they tweeted about the wrong episode. They tweeted about an episode that we're not going to do until February 26th, which is about writing your very first extension. It's sort of an introduction to extension writing, getting started. Mm-hmm. And today, that's not it. So I don't know something went wrong there with the scheduling for the tweets and all that stuff. So I apologize.
So what are we doing this week?
Well, today we are augmenting an existing language. Excellent. So John, you probably had this idea before where you're seeing something in C# or HTML or whatever language you might be in and thought, hey, what if we could add something to it? What if we could enhance it somehow? So not like writing your own language service, for a brand new language that Visual Studio don't understand, but how do we attach to an existing language, right, and do something there?
And this isn't extending the language itself; it's extending the language service, right?
That is correct. That's a good distinction. Yeah.
Which is interesting because I've been keeping an eye on source generators, which is a way of kind of adding on to the language, sort of. I mean, like you can write an attribute that generates some code or stuff like that.
Yes.
But yeah, neat. All right.
So this is about language service. That means it's not the language, it's not the compilers, it's none of that stuff. It is how the language visually behaves, let's say, in Visual Studio.
Okay.
All right. So you can imagine you could add, new items in the IntelliSense list or, any such things like that. You can hover over things and you can create like watermarks or a bunch of things. And today we're going to look at one very specific thing. And let me tell you how this came about. It was because we actually had another thing scheduled for today. And a couple of weeks ago, I changed it because someone was saying that they had a problem in Visual Studio. And the problem was when they worked with JavaScript and they had strings containing HTML, that was not colorized. And that was a big problem to them. And also that this was something that there already was an extension for earlier versions of Visual Studio. So let's take a look at my screen here real quick. There's an extension out there called HTML Syntax Highlighter for JavaScript strings. And if we kind of look at what it does, zoom in, you can see here, this is JavaScript. Mm-hmm. What it does is that if you have a string in JavaScript and it's formatted as HTML, it colorizes it as HTML. See that?
Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting too. I was playing with this earlier this week, especially now with JavaScript that you can do template literals.
Yep.
It makes it nicer for adding, like this is a little bit ugly for doing, concatenating a bunch of strings. But now, like I was just doing this, actually, that's why I was almost late to the call. I built a SVG image generator thing that we use for these shows, that we use for the YouTube, and like the thumbnails to advertise the shows, and so using that, I played with a bunch of different things, but I'm doing them using Glitch, and I ended up just having the SVG in a template literal, to avoid cores. So it's actually a bunch of JavaScript files, and they're just template literals, and it reads in the SVG and does some token replacement. So, yeah.
That's kind of clever. You have to show me that one day. That sounds super interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like it's a total hack, but it totally works. So
yeah. All right. So so check out this extension though. There's a problem.
2013.
That oh man, it has not been updated in what 7-8 years, right? And so let's do that. Let's take this extension and just port it to Visual Studio 2019, and then we'll go from there. So and I thought this could be an interesting exercise because there are some extensions out there that are popular where the author has moved on, not using Visual Studio anymore, but left it open source. And if they're licensed in a good way, then why not fork it and update some of these extensions to support the latest version of Visual Studio? That could be fun and an easy and a kind of interesting way to getting started with writing extensions is to, I think that's just kind of a nice kind of slow introduction, right? Wouldn't you think?
What's the best way to fork or like, is there any sort of supported way in the marketplace for doing that? Or do you just kind of, because I've seen some people do just like, like the name of the thing and then like 2019 or like new or, you know what I mean? Is there any better way to do that?
Well, so there is nothing on the marketplace that helps us do it. Usually the extensions are licensed in a way that you probably have to attribute it, so link back to the original source.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to remember to do that. And, even if the license said that we could do whatever, I think it would still be the nice thing to do anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
So, usually most licenses, they state that you can't, like if you ship it, you have to come up with a different name. You can't like just, because names are like trademarkable, right? And copyright and all that sort of stuff. So, and I think that's fair. So I think what we're going to do here is that we're going to create a brand new extension, give it a different name, and then copy the code files over and massage that into the new world, and then credit the original author, basically.
Yep.
That's how I would do it. I don't think there's any other smooth way. So so there is one other way of doing it. I could just clone down the project from their GitHub page and take that Visual Studio 2013 project and slowly update it to the latest NuGet packages and all that sort of stuff. But I feel like that's going to be more work.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you look at, let's just look at if you look at how they structure their repo like this, like they don't have a source folder where that contains the project and the solution folder is separate and so on. Right. So that's not how I want the layout of my extension to be anyway.
It's a trade-off. Sometimes if there's a lot of code, then you'd want to fork and update and that kind of stuff, versus in this case, you're like, I want to take the general idea, but you're not going to gain a lot from taking 6-year-old code.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
And so I already cloned this project and it's right here. So you can see there's a one-to-one mapping between what you see in the browser here and what you see in Explorer, right? So that's it. That's wonderful. And you can see this is MIT license, so I can. I never understand if it's copyleft or whatever, meaning I can kind of do what I'm going to do. But I think MIT is what's called copyleft license, which means you can kind of do with it whatever you want as long as you keep a few simple things in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've cheated and I've actually started my project already, because instead of us having to do this every single time where I go into Visual Studio, say File, New Project, and select the Visual Studio Extensibility project template, and find an icon to it, add my license, so on and so forth, I thought I'd just go ahead and do that from the beginning. And so that's right here. And the name of the extension is HTML for JavaScript. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not very creative with extension names. It's one of my if you look at all my like extensions, you'll notice that their title of them are always like what they do.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing, because then people have like a clear expectation.
SEO friendly.
I didn't even think of that, but yeah, of course. You're right.
Cool.
So, and we don't really have anything here. So we need to attribute the original author and so on and so forth. Okay. Let's head into Visual Studio. Here's what it looks like. My project is over here. And let's just look at the problem that the extension is set to solve. Here I have a JavaScript file. You can see here I have a HTML tag inside, just a string. And it's not colorized as HTML. That would look like this, right? So that's what we're trying to do, trying to make this colorized like regular HTML. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if we look at the code that we got from the original author here, we can see there's actually only 2 C# files here that we care about. So let's just grab those. And, you know, I'm just going to copy them. I like to create folders for things. So I'm going to create a folder. And I'm going to call this classification. I'm going to paste those 2 files in there. I'll explain the word in a second here, what the whole classification means. So, but these are the 2 files. Okay, so classification. Let's take a look at this HTML file right here. You can clearly see that there are differences in color between the different things, like HTML element name here, and then attribute name and attribute value. And if I had like a string in here, for instance, again, that's colored different from that. So I have an extension installed called Extensibility Essentials, which you should also install. Anyone that wants to play around with extensibility. It brings a bunch of functionality. One of them is on the standard toolbar, this button here that's called Toggle Extensibility Margin. I'm going to click it and check out the bottom here. It gives me some information. I'm going to zoom in. We actually wrote this extension in one of the first episodes of this show. So go back in time and check that out. But here we have a few interesting things. It shows classification none. Okay, so I'm going to put my cursor on the HTML element name, and so now the classification was actually HTML element name.
Oh, that is cool.
HTML attribute name, HTML attribute value. Okay, and then none. If it's just plain text, there's no reason to classify it. Like the default is just plain text. So So now we can see the names of these classifications, okay? So there's a language service somewhere that figured out that, you know, these 4 character is an HTML element name. And then there's white space in between, like there's nothing in between, no classifications. And then an HTML attribute comes up. Then we have an HTML operator, that's the equal sign. What else do we have? We have HTML tag delimiter. Those are the greater than, less than here. Okay, so that's how classifications work in Visual Studio. That's how colorization works. Classification is a different way of, well, I guess it's more than just saying colorization. It's kind of what's below. It's an abstraction level lower than color. But you can think of it as the same thing. Like, how do you want to colorize your file, right? So for each classification name, you attach a set of styles, which essentially is color. But you could actually make things bold and italic and stuff like that too.
And so for this, you're not actually setting a color, you're setting a style. And that's important because people have different color themes, right? They may have a dark mode or whatever. And so they say this is, if something is an HTML attribute, this is the color. And then,
it's defined in fonts and colors, right? So you can have your own color theme and all that sort of stuff. But if we go down and I'm just going to hit H. If we look at HTML, you can see here are the exact same names, right? And you can see how they are colorized. And you can change them here. So that's kind of cool. All right. So let's take a look at what we're dealing with. So we need to update some namespaces and stuff. So let's go ahead and just let's just leave that for a second. Okay, so this one needs a few things. It needs a component model composition. So let's grab that. And system Windows Media. Component model composition and Windows Media. Oh, because it's that presentation core. I always get these wrong. Let's just try it. Okay. So now we should get composition. Yeah. And media. All right. So far, so good. So let's take a look at the provider definition right here. So right off the bat, we notice something, and that is that we have an export attribute. And when we have an export attribute, we're dealing with MEF, the Managed Extensibility Framework. And if we want to do that from our extension, we have to mark our extension as a MEF component. So I'm going to go up to the V6 manifest under assets, and I'm going to say new. I'm going to add a new one, and I'm going to add MEF component. I'm going to say this is a project in the solution, and it's the one project that we've got. So this basically writes, if I hit F7 here to go to the code, this basically adds this line that basically tells Visual Studio when we install the extension that, hey, there's a MEF component here too. Okay, so register that. Otherwise, this would do absolutely nothing. Okay. All right, so far so good. So what are we doing here? The way that MEF works in Visual Studio is that you always have this kind of, or almost always have this idea of a provider model. So it's a provider that basically just returns an instance of the actual interface implementation that you need. And so what I always do is that because there's only one method, says get classifier. So the classifier is the one that's important here. So I'm just going to take this because I don't like to have two classes in one file. So I'm going to move this out, move this to HTML classifier provider, because that's the name of that. So now that moved out. Okay, so let's just change the namespace now that no, let's not do that yet. So that leaves us with just the classifier. So here's the classifier. This is actually quite a long file. It's simple enough, but there's a lot of stuff going on, as you can tell here. So let's just take it nice and easy. So first of all, let's call this something else, and let's get rid of the region. Let me try this. I haven't tried this in a long time. Edit, comments, remove regions. Boom. It removed the regions. That's another extension, by the way. That's not built into Visual Studio. It's called comment remover. If you're dealing with extensions, you probably need that extension if you're an extension author, because all this stuff always adds a lot of comments, all the templates for extensions. Okay, but we're going to start here. We're going to start with our provider because that's the very first thing that's going to happen, that we're going to need. And you can see here, it hooks into two content types. So this is how we make sure that we hook into an existing language that's based on content types. So let's figure out what JavaScript content type is in Visual Studio 2019. And we open a JavaScript file and we go down to the bottom and it's called TypeScript. Okay. TypeScript. So we can get rid of that and just do TypeScript. So the reason it's called TypeScript is that because in Visual Studio 2019, maybe even in 2017, but for sure in 2019, it's the same language service that handles both TypeScript and JavaScript. And because all JavaScript is technically also TypeScript, right? So I guess that makes sense. So it's not like a parent-child relationship that, the TypeScript is the parent content type inheriting from JavaScript or anything like that. Which is supported, by the way, by Visual Studio. You can layer content types on each other.
What's an example? I'm trying to think of a content type that does that layering.
Well, I guess they all do. So they all inherit from code, the content type called code, which inherits from the content type text.
Okay.
But it's a way that you can, and there might be, I think Racer used to do the same thing where it would rely on HTML or something like that. So it's a way of so if you have any MEF export that lights up on a certain content type, and in your language service you inherit from that content type, you get the benefit of that original tooling that came along with it, right? So it's kind of neat. But I think like nowadays, most of the built-in stuff probably doesn't. Maybe some of the C++ actually. I don't know. So also, this is pretty verbose. We can greatly optimize this. So he basically here he creates. It used to be something that confused me as well, but we don't have to keep a static version of this. We just need to create a new one. But let's just leave this as is, because right now our goal is to basically just make this work.
So we had a question in the chat, which is, how would you specify an inherited content type? Is that inheriting? Is that class inheritance, or is that?
No, actually, right here. So I'm going to show you. So we can do that now. So let's just look at the first thing that happened inside our classifier is that. So in our provider here, we get like a couple of things. We get a classifier registry and a classifier aggregator. And in that registry right here, we can ask for classification names. Okay. And these are just strings. It's whatever is registered with Visual Studio already. But these ones are actually some that we provide ourselves as MEF exports. And they're listed right here. So check this out. Here we can go in and say, oh, sorry, this is content type. So I wasn't actually going to show you the inheritance. You can only do the inheritance when you do a language service. So we're not doing a language service. We're augmenting an existing language service. But we can do the same for format providers here. So we can say, based on base definition, right? And then we can say something else like a CSS string. I don't know if that's something like this, right? So now it inherits everything from the base definition plus whatever we define ourselves. And that is defined in, so MEF exports down here. And see, they're all defined in foreground color blue. They have all these properties. So let's see, how can we actually format text? You can see we can do a bunch of things. We can set opacity. We can set background color. And font size. What? Font size. Yes, you can do font size. You can do bold. You can do italic. Text decorations such as underlines and overlines and stuff like that. So you can actually do a bunch of stuff that you can't do from the tools options. Like you don't have, see, this doesn't actually give you all that granular detail that you can do if you do it from an extension. So that's kind of cool. Okay. So here we are. This is all good. Let's see if we can build it. Will it work? Will it work? Okay, it's building. So let's just run it. And I'm going to just copy this into a JavaScript file once the experimental instance is showing up. There's a question here about regions from Fuel Snable. Is there an add regions as well? No, but that's an idea for an extension. Like you can, maybe you can surround with region. No, there is, right? If I go in here,
there's a refactoring, yeah.
Surround with region. Okay, so not in JavaScript. They don't have.
Oh yeah, it's just in there. It's
OKS here region.
Yeah, nice.
Boom.
That's beautiful.
All right, so let's open a JavaScript file. So now, if it works now, we're done, right? Kind of, maybe. I'm gonna paste it in. Boom. You seeing that, John?
Yes, that's amazing.
Isn't it?
That was quick.
That's what they call copy paste magic, isn't it?
Wow.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, great show this week.
All right. See you, everybody.
Well, okay. I am curious. Like, could you, let's say you did want to underline or something like that, or do some special decorator, would it be, Is it as simple as just like having some logic to do that? Like when you're processing? Wow. Okay.
It literally is. It literally is what I just showed before here. You go in where we define all those classification formats somewhere down here. And you can see this one. Oh, classification time, attribute name. So if it's an attribute name, then we just go in and say, text decorations equals that new text decorations, text decoration collection. Oh, and then say add. Okay, so we have to like create that in basically, but
okay. Wow.
yeah. So sweet. So maybe we say text decoration dot add. And there we go. New text decoration. Is that a thing? Location. Oh my god. What is this even? What's complaining about?
Could you do the initializer?
I need to do Windows base.
Oh,
But
see, I've made things complicated.
But I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to get rid of all these. I want to get rid of the entire file here for formats. And John, do you have an idea why I want to get rid of this?
Because you're not using them, and it's I mean, they're already defined in the base, right?
Well, yeah. So if we looked at our HTML file, we saw that we have all these. They're already there. So instead of defining my own ones, that's going to show up. So now I have two sets of HTML formatters, right? I have the ones that ship in the box, and then I have these new ones that only apply when you're in JavaScript.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird. So what I want to do is I'm just going to open a project that I played around with some of this stuff. So I want to replace these with whatever is built into Visual Studio, so that if you change the font colors, let's say your theme for regular HTML, well, that should be the same color that we use in our extension here, shouldn't it? And so I cheated and prepared a little something. So what I did was I took the HTML assembly that ships with the Visual Studio that handles the language, and I kind of did an IL spy on it, and I figured out to get the list of names. So I'm going to do an Alt F12. That's the peak definition. And that shows me these are internal, see, internal static. So I can't actually access this, but Visual Studio is kind enough to like just do the decompilation and show it to me. So that's very handy. Thank you, Visual Studio. So here they are. That's the list of names. I'm just going to move that over there while I type in. So we can basically just type it in. So what is this one? Delimiter. What the hell is a delimiter? That must be like operator. Oh no, it's called tag delimiter. Now I see it. So I can go in here and say HTML tag delimiter. Okay. And this one was what? HTML element type. Element type, that must be element name, right? I'm guessing. And then we have attribute name. Must be like fantastic just watching me like kind of type over and over again.
Now, I missed that. Is there a reason why you can't just add a reference so that you can pull in format names?
I totally could, but I don't want to, because that assembly, because it's not part of the SDK. It's not part of the Visual Studio officially supported and documented APIs. That means that it is subject to change at any given point in time. It could change between now, where we're, Visual Studio 2019 version 16.8, and like 16.9 is coming out soon, right? So it could change between those two, and then it's just be broken. Like maybe you won't crash Visual Studio, but now you have a reference that's wrong at runtime, and so that's just really bad.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. What is that quote type? I did something wrong. I should have. That goes down here. Quote type. What is quote type? I don't have a quote type. I have an operator, HTML operator. Let's use that. That's like an equals. So let's just do that. And then text type, we had none. I don't know about none. So let's just call it something else, string. I don't know if string exists. But now we should be good to go. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't even know if this compiles. If there's other references. There wasn't. Okay, good. Katja is asking if we are from Microsoft. Yes, this is the official Microsoft Visual Studio YouTube or Twitch channel. So you are watching two guys from the Visual Studio and .NET team.
Yep. And what's cool too, Katja is from Portugal. So hello, Portugal. Cool. Yep.
And I've traveled all over Europe, and Portugal is like super high on my list. I just haven't been there yet.
I've been to Lisbon, and it's awesome, or Lisboa, and it's really cool. I love it.
Nice.
I recommend it. Yep.
I'm jealous. Okay, so that didn't work at all. So for some reason, I couldn't just grab those names. Now, what's up with that? That makes me feel sad. I was sure that I could. Why couldn't I do that?
Now, why doesn't your classifier show? It should show if it's a classification issue, right?
No, it's not. It's a name thing. It classifies them correctly, and it gives them this name. But I wonder if that's because that's a display name and not the, I did something that may help out. I don't know. Classifications types. Let's just try something. Instead of element name, we have, because originally I actually couldn't find, let's just try this element name. Originally, I couldn't figure out how to IL spy my way in and find those names. So I went in and I looked at the source code in our local Azure DevOps instance, right, where we keep the Visual Studio source code. But I felt like that was cheating because the viewers out there, they can't do that. I might just have looked in the wrong location in that file, which you should be able to do. But let's try it now. Nope, still no go. Well, okay then. We like that. Then let's do something crazy. No, that's not too crazy. Okay, let's remove the region again. Boom, that's nice. Okay, so we were going to do the namespace here. So John, do you think I can just rename this and then do the refactoring to apply that to the other files? Control dot. No, I can't. Change namespace. No. Isn't that weird? It's because there was a dot in it, I believe. See, there's that dot, so I can't use the...
That's interesting.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. What's all this? Like, these are never used. Fix violation. Oh, yeah. Let's configure this. This should all be good to go. So let's click that. They don't do it? Oh. Fix violation name. We've had this discussion before, John, when James was here. And my take is that I always use underscores.
Yeah. So is that in your editor config then?
No, I don't have an editor config for that. Maybe that's why it didn't come up and give me those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I thought I had an editor config. I do have an editor config. It's right here.
So it's got to be in there somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Old school, someone says. Alex, listen up. There's nothing old. If it was old school, you know what it would be like? It would be like this. M_.
Yeah.
John, what do you think? Remember?
Yeah. And maybe all caps, just because. Yeah.
But now I need to go back here and do all this typing I did for no good reason. Makes me feel sad. Format name. Why can't I find that? Oh. Because there we go. Okay.
Those are the only two. I was going to say you should find replace, but those are the only files. So that should be it now.
But now something's going on here.
Yeah.
HTML element type. Oh no. Oh. Sometimes hold down Alt and then move the mouse. We do that like that. Yeah. There used to be a way I could do this and then say apply to the whole project. Why can't I do that? Where is the whole project? You know? That's totally uncool. Feel like maybe it's because I don't have that set up right in my what's it called? Editor config. Okay. What are we gonna do? Should we do something fun with the names here?
What do you mean by fun?
Well, I'm thinking we do something that looks weird. So we
Unicode. Can you use Unicode?
No, I was thinking more like we make it look. So here's like a special.
Oh, right. Interesting shading or something like that.
Yeah, this is element, HTML element. So what can we do here? We can do base dot is bold. I mean, that's not something you can do, right? You can't do that from the
Yeah.
We do background color, background brush. Now, what's the difference between brush and color? Background customizable. Oh, true, false. That's it. A background color.
Can you do gradients? Wow, opacity. You've got all kinds of stuff there.
Oh yeah. What kind? Let's do Dodger blue. Is that a thing? Yes.
Yeah.
That was always my thing when I did CSS, but I always use Dodger blue as my example. Or no, I use corn silk blue. Is that a thing?
Yes. Yeah. Cornflower.
Cornflower blue. Okay. Let's do that. It really annoys me that I can't reuse HTML editor's existing format definition.
Are you able to query? I don't even know if that would have been a thing. Can you query if it's in light mode or dark mode?
Yes.
Okay.
I can. That's part of why I don't want to invent my own. So you never want to invent your own classifications if you don't have to, because then you get the theming for free. Right? So and there are some like default things. Let's see here. Like comment string, those are default, those are always in Visual Studio.
Wow.
That
is beautiful. That is definitely going to help me write some good code.
That is great. Like that?
Yes.
Now let's see if this supports something else here. Uh-oh. It doesn't.
Because that's string.
Is that a backslash? No.
For multi-line, do you need a yeah?
I need that, right? Sign. Oh, maybe I can do this. Isn't that multi-line?
No, to do multi-line, you do a tack. So it's like an apostrophe.
Oh, that's for template string.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right though. Okay. Yeah. So this maybe doesn't work in template string. So in template string, I can do something like this. right, but that works.
Mhm.
That looks kind
Yeah.
of good. But I can't do a new line. Why is that? Just because this is not. What is this? What is this anyway?
I wonder if the classifier know how to?
This is classified as a string, but that was all it needed. It has to do with it only looks at one line at a time, and it didn't see a start tick here. Now there's a syntax error. Look at that. Oh. There we go. Okay, so now it's, yeah, so there's something in the syntax of JavaScript here that maybe this needs to be updated to support that latest stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if we can do that. At least template string, but it does a template string though, right? So it does, so that's accurate.
I'm actually surprised it handles. Well, okay, so that's just the is that using the JavaScript code, or is that relying on the custom code that you brought in, the classifier code, or is that just the? Okay,
that's a great question. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at how this actually works. Just for the sake of remembering to make it look prettier, I'm just going to undo these things that we just did. So the way it works, and I think it's kind of clever the way he did it, is that, check this out. He checks whether or not the classification is of string. So this is called get classification spans. This is basically saying, okay, this returns a collection of, the text buffer ranges with what classification format name they have, so they can be colorized. And he checks whether or not are we in something called a string or a script string. Okay. And he doesn't even look at are you inside like tick marks or single quotes or double quotes. It doesn't matter, because the underlying language service classifies all of those things as string.
Okay.
So we can actually clean up here, because he says only 2010 uses script string. So we can just nuke that. We believe he tells the truth. So I don't actually know. And he excludes the quote. So he just takes whatever the span is, and he just -1 and +1, to get the inner text. That's it. I feel like this is like, look at this is all the same.
Yeah.
I feel like this could use some cleanup, right? And then also some private stuff. I would move this out in its own, probably. And but here we go. So this is a very long method, scan literal. So he scans through it, and he basically he figures out what they are. Okay, so he just moves through, and he adds new classification spans when he finds something. Here's a closing tag element name or whatever. You can see, so it's kind of simple enough. It's all very repeated, and so there's not that many concepts. There's just a lot of it, and so there's a lot of keep in mind here.
It's interesting. Well, so two thoughts. One is I would want to like do the refactoring with like C# 8 and 9, do switch statements and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm wondering is, can you rely on, like, there's already some text classifier stuff that's built into like how Visual Studio is already classifying JavaScript and HTML. Is there a way to lean on that as opposed to having to write your own string parsing stuff?
Well, that's what we're doing here. So we're not writing our own. So because he goes in here, he says, what is the current classification? Oh, it's a string. That's what the underlying JavaScript or TypeScript language service says that this is. So, if there's a string, then his logic kicks in.
Okay. I was just wondering if his custom logic, if there's a way to just tell it like, well, I guess not. I was going to say, like, can you use the built-in, because there's already classifiers for HTML,
right?
That are being used, but I guess there's not like a way to say like, hey, go run the HTML classifier on this for me.
Yeah, there's probably not. There might be some ways you can go about it, but you probably need to do some reflection or something.
Okay.
It's also important to stress the difference here between a classifier and a parse tree, right? Because in order for the HTML editor, for instance, I know that pretty intimately because I was the PM at the time when we wrote the new HTML editor. The parse tree like looks at the entire text of the document, all the HTML, and it creates a tree just like any other like like an AST, right? And then the classifier then uses that tree to figure out, like, okay, between this position and this position in the text buffer, that's an element name, and between here and here, there's an attribute value, let's say, right? And so if we can get the whole to the tree, then that's the most powerful thing we can do, because that means that we know that, hey, this element is actually a child of this other element name, and so on. And so we get that full fidelity information. But most of the time, we just have the classifier, and then we need to query the classifier like we do here and say, okay, in this span, and a span is usually always a single line. So in this line, get the classification spans, okay? That's in this line. And this should, of course, be to in lower invariant. These days, that might not have existed at the time that he wrote it originally. So now we get all the whatever classifications that are on that line. And then he just says for each of them, if any of them is a string, then I'm going to run my logic inside that thing that's classified as a string and provide more granular information. So that's how that works. So you can do that with any language. This is just a core Visual Studio concept. You can do this with VS for Mac as well. It uses the exact same API. So that's kind of neat. All right. Was that really it? Let's commit this to source control. Oh, no, it's not it, because we forgot to credit the original, the OG, right? The original gangster here. So let's see. And we also need to put a screenshot. I said to do add screenshot. So we can see here. So based on the, let's just copy this. Based on the, based on this, based on the extension by, and who wrote it? Avo Bright. Avo Bright. Oh, let's do the GitHub name instead. Right? That's probably. Avo Bright. There we go. Oops. Boom. Bright. There we go. So now it's based on, but is it based on, or is it like a copy of? What should I write here? I think legally I'm fine, but
yeah,
I want to give all the credit, you know?
Yeah, you could just say an updated version.
Oh, yeah.
Updated from core or source code, whatever. Or yeah.
An updated version of that with support for Visual Studio 2019, right? Boom.
And the one other thing is your license file. If you have a separate license file, I think you want to put something at the top like uses or reference the other one.
Is that how it works?
I always go and look.
But I don't know how to augment a license file. That seems like something. Oh, that's his license. Where's mine? It's in here. This is just the one I always use, which is Apache, which is compatible, right, with MIT.
Yeah. You're not calling out anything separate like copyright or anything, so I think you're all set.
Right.
Oh, yours actually does. If you look down at the bottom, it says copyright.
Oh, it does do that?
So I think you also want to say something like above that. You just say, you can say above copyright, blah, 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 and then put that person's copy from their license.
Oh, from their license. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And where was that? That was in here. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So there says copyright 2015. You can just copy that in.
John, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good idea. Okay. So now we just need a good screenshot.
Yeah.
And this is not it. Let's see here. Hey, what happened? Why did it stop working? What is that about? Oh no. Should I just like go back and undo?
Control Z, Control Z.
I think I just closed everything. Go clean up and save. Yeah. Oh, I didn't. I need to install that. Why did that not work? Oh, that's my MT package class. We could probably get rid of that. We're only doing MEF components, not package. Formats, that's all good. What did I do in here? I removed the CS class something. And then I did what? And of course, because I accidentally closed it, let's remove this. And I'm going to do a clean. And then I'm going to do a rebuild. No, it's just a build. Yeah, with inspiration from Siska. Michael Siska, I believe. Rainbow colors, Alex says. You can totally do rainbow colors. There's an extension out there that does rainbow curly brackets. So that's possible. Absolutely. Okay, please work. I don't know why you stopped working before, but this is problematic. I'll have to like copy everything in. Oops. What happened? Oh, phew. It still works. All right. Okay, so that's all good. Let's commit that. So added the classifier. Commit and push. And then we can go here, take a look at, oh, what did I click? Go away, here we go. Let's check out build is passing. All right, here we go. Will it build? Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that too. I hooked up the whole CI pipeline as well before we went live here, just so that we wouldn't have to look at that again. There is one of the episodes where I show my setup with AppVeyor. This is AppVeyor that we're looking at here, my build pipeline. Warning. Oh yeah, we're never using that. Okay, so now that it builds, it actually publishes it to the V6 gallery. So let's go to the v6gallery.com, which is not the marketplace. And we got an HTML for JavaScript. Boom.
Amazing.
Nice. Amazing. We forgot our screenshot. Embarrassing. I guess we could, I don't know about that. Like we could lift it from this extension, but I don't know if that's like, I don't feel good about that.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of art, right? That's a different.
Mm-hmm.
I need to find a good HTML. Like I can just write the strings, I guess, but it would be cool if I could just find, what would that be? So HTML string in JavaScript. I just want to get some examples. JavaScript strings. See, so I don't need to do like a multi-line thing.
That doesn't have HTML though.
No. Converting this to too little. Not enough. Not enough. Okay, I'm gonna have to just do it, I guess.
Yeah. View source on a.
So the way he did it was he did something like something like this, right? And then he said plus, and then he went down here, and eventually so let's do something with let's do a video, but it uses some attributes. So poster equals in file.png or child, whatever. And source equals video.mp4. Okay, that's got to be it. There we go. Let's say that's the screenshot, shall we?
Yeah, it looks good enough. I mean, as long as you zoom it.
Yeah, but I have. Oh no, I don't have. I was about to say I have a higher DPI, but I don't think I do in this resolution. So I'm just gonna grab it here, and I'm gonna pop it straight into my README. Go away! Come on, go away there. Pop it straight into my README.
You know, if you want to make it a few lines longer, you could put in like a picture tag or something. I don't know. You've already taken the screenshot. So.
I could. What do you mean a picture tag?
Well, here,
type it out.
I just sent you one in the chat for StreamYard if you want to use that, or I just searched HTML picture tag. What's nice about that is it's a few lines long. Of course, then you'll have to either concatenate or use the or you can, yeah, exactly.
So here I just do Control H and replace double quote with single quote, and then Alt A. No, that's not what I want. Not Alt A. I need to do it in selection. Didn't I do a selection? Double quote with single quote. There we go. And then we go, boom, 1. That makes no sense. That would make a better one. I don't know. This is boring.
Yeah.
So let's just not do that. This is all good. Did you see what I did there to insert the file? So I take a screenshot, right? I'm just going to take a screenshot. And now in my Markdown editor, I just Control V for paste. And it sees that there's an image in there, and it, suggests that I save it. And when I do, it just inserts it like that.
Nice.
Pretty sweet. And so I can go and there's an image optimizer, optimize for best compression. Just lowered it by 55% of its weight. Okay, that's it. Added screenshot. Save this file too. Okay. That's it. I can now go to the marketplace with this thing. I don't know if it's ready for prime time. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I'd say ship it.
Should I do it?
I mean, yeah. It's updated. It works in 2019.
Okay. Go to the V6 gallery. We need the newer version that is, where is it? It's being built right now. There
and it does come with a money back guarantee, right?
Oh, of course. There, 105. Let's just download that. And then we can go in here and say new Visual Studio extension. Let's upload that. And where did it go? In my downloads, HTML for JavaScript. Boom. Continue. What are we going to call it? We're going to call it HTML for JavaScript. That's what's going to go in the URL. So internal name, isn't that kind of weird? But then you can like customize it a little bit, which is nice. And then we're going to copy in our markdown. Here. We're just going to take all of this, copy in right there. And now we just need to update our paths. And so every time I go in and do this. Okay, to find the path of, let's say this image, I say download, and then I go up here and I copy the full path. And then we can go back and paste that in there and paste that in with the license. There we go. And categories, this is web. I'd say this is web, right? There's a web somewhere. There it is. And text, TypeScript, JavaScript. I think I have to do one at a time. So first I say TypeScript, then JavaScript. And then HTML. There we go. Free, and what is the URL? Well, the URL to the source code is what I copy here. Oh, you can figure it out. There it is. We're going to allow Q&A. There we go. So now we can see what's going on when you upload an extension is that the marketplace is kind of trying to validate the extension. So the first thing it does is that it runs a tool that's created by the Visual Studio extensibility team that checks for any warnings, like are you using async package? And if you are using it correctly, it checks for like a few best practice kind of things. And so that's one thing. That happened when I uploaded it. Then the marketplace itself also runs some security checks. I think it does like a detonator chamber kind of thing, because a V6 is actually like Visual Studio extension is a zip file, so you could do zip bombs, right, and stuff like that. And so it tries to validate that it's like benign to the extent that it can. Of course, we run in proc, and so it runs in with whatever permission Visual Studio runs under once the extension itself is running. But at least it's that initial check, such that if it's a zip bomb, then just the act of installing it will like crash your machine or something like that. So
yeah.
Do you know about zip bombs?
I do. They're interesting. We did have a question come in. First, I can't think two thoughts at a time, so I'm asking this first. But so the question on AppVeyor versus GitHub Actions, and I assume it's just because you had AppVeyor set up originally, right? Like you already had it in place. That's
correct. I would have used GitHub Actions if that was when I first started out. It's just my setup is now so streamlined that when I create a new extension, which I do like
all the time,
not every Friday, but close to it, then all I have to do is to copy in an existing AppVeyor file. And I have PowerShell scripts and all sorts of things already. It's open source. It's hosted on GitHub. That's referenced by that AppVeyor file. And so it's pretty much the same AppVeyor file that I just copy into all my projects, and it handles everything. So I haven't had the time to set that same thing up for GitHub Actions, but there's no reason I couldn't do that.
You know, that might be an interesting thing for a future stream, is actually going through and updating and setting up GitHub Actions for this. I don't know, because you do a lot of cool stuff in there, like packaging it all up and everything.
Yeah, so I need to figure out how to run PowerShell from there, and then I need to get the build number from GitHub Actions, and that might be it. And then I need to know what the internal paths are on GitHub, because I need to, or maybe use relative paths. I don't know.
Yeah. You mentioned zip bombs, and they are super interesting because the way it basically keeps on unzipping it. So it's a way that a small zip file can unzip into a huge multi-gigabyte file itself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's recursive. You can also do some really bad stuff, even just with like regular expressions and stuff. Again, like using recursion and just blow stuff up. So,
And I think even XML bombing is a thing too.
mm.
Barry Dorrance was telling me about that like years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's something about you can format or you can add some characters to an XML file that makes XML parsers like loop forever or something like that.
Yeah.
And so they just create more memory, and at some point it dies.
Wow.
So, yeah. Okay, so now our it's done uploading, and you can see here it says that it's not public. Right? It says not public. But by default, extensions are not public the first time you upload them. So we have to like go in here and say make public. Are you sure? Yes. So now it's public. Now I can open it up and we can see what it looks like. Marketplace. I feel like it's a little it looks good. That screenshot actually came out pretty well.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a little less on the description here. So one of the things that people complain about, and you should pay attention actually out there if you are writing extensions yourself. I was just reading up on some research the marketplace team has done, and they found out that extension consumers, so not authors but consumers, they find that often there's not enough description of extensions. So it's super important. Like that was one of their biggest complaints actually, like that they can't, if you can't give a very clear expectation to what the extension does and how it helps the user is not going to like it. So the more screenshots you got, animated GIFs, video, really good description. So they have a super good feel for what it looks like.
Huh.
That's apparently very, very important. I think
I know personally, whenever I'm searching for an extension, if I can find somebody that's taken the time to document, describe exactly what it does and all that, it's I mean, I'm more likely to go for that. So.
Yeah, it makes the whole difference, right? It really does. And I did write a best practice document for doing extensions.
Nice.
And it's a gist. It's one of my gists on the GitHubs. Can I find it? I don't know.
I guess yes. I bet you can.
I would encourage everyone to read it. But just to get discover. Oh, I'm not signed in on this browser, so hang on. So, whoops. And it has like it outlines those things and a bunch of other things. It's called the V6 checklist. V6 checklist. So here it is. Can I post this? I'll post it in the private comments.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you can do with that.
Well, I can copy it into the chat.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
something. I mean, we could AKMS it, I guess.
I think I have. Oh man, I don't remember. Anyway, this has a bunch of stuff, including name and description. Right? Good marketplace description. Right?
Nice.
So, yeah. It even gives you, like, if you have a GitHub extension, you can take this and create an issue and paste all this in so that you have a checklist for yourself.
That's cool.
Isn't that geeky?
That's a not well-known enough thing that you can do that, So.
Right. Okay. Cool. I think that's it.
Wow. That was great.
Really?
and a pretty useful extension. And it's great that you showed how to, I mean, you covered a few things. One was extending a language service, which was the main topic, but also just looking at the process of like finding, like, there's a lot of extensions that just, people don't maintain, don't keep up to date, and updating it and testing it and republishing it was not a big deal. So.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at that. There's a comment here I want to just from Vishal. It's tongue in cheek. Oh, what did I click? The wrong one. Microsoft Employee doesn't use Edge. This browser right here is Edge that I've been using. Let's see it. It's the only reason I use Chrome. The only thing I use Chrome for is actually to upload extensions to the marketplace, because I use a separate Microsoft account that I don't use for anything else, kind of. And I don't want that to kind of pollute my daily driver, which is Edge. So I keep that signed in on the Chrome browser. So it's just part of my workflow, man. You know?
So yeah, it's interesting. I used to do that more, but now I use different browser profiles inside Edge.
Oh,
so yeah, so I have one that I'm signed into that's like my personal, Microsoft account, email and all that. And then I have another that's my work account. I actually have a third that I use for .NET Foundation, because I still have some stuff I do for that. And then I also use a guest account. So I do that like for .NET community stand-ups when I'm sharing my browser, because otherwise you get all the personal ads and all kinds of goofy stuff.
That's what I'm doing here too, right? Is the guest account.
Yeah. But we do. I mean, as web developers, like, it is good to test in multiple browsers, and I'm a big fan of Edge. I like it, but I use Chrome regularly too, and I think it's important, to test against different browsers as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
All right.
Well, good stuff.
So, John, I hope you have a great weekend.
And you too. Yep.
Thank you.
Like I said last week, this is a great way to get excited for the weekend. This is a nice Friday afternoon, Friday afternoon thing. So
I'm actually going to go out to have dinner at a restaurant for the first time in almost a year, probably a year. Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Outside under like heating lamps, it's going to be so cold. I'm wearing because I'm going to leave right now, I'm like wearing long underwear and like big like ski pants. Like literally I'm wearing ski pants right now.
Wow.
And like 3 layers of like thermal underwear.
Wow. All right. Well, don't want to hold you up from dinner. Thanks everyone.
Yeah,
and
thanks for joining.
We'll be back next Friday, right? And more. So what are we doing next Friday?
Next Friday. What are we doing next Friday?
Some cool extension.
We're not writing a new extension.
Here, I can look on the board.
At notifications.
Okay.
So that's actually going to be really interesting, because how do we notify our users about something? There's many different ways that Visual Studio allows us to do notifications, and we're going to take a look at the various different ones. So we're not going to produce an extension next week. We're just going to look at sort of explore the APIs, if you will.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap up there then. So I am going to search around here, and I will play the thanks for watching video, and thank you, everybody.
Bye.